Well, it's a happy new week to you and happy celebrations to our Muslim brothers and sisters. Well, we are here again to talk some business. These are the stories we are tracking for you at this time. Petrol price, Dangote, NNPCL differ as refinery supplies 16 million litres. Goldman Sachs Citigroup cuts China's 2024 economic growth forecast to 4.7%. Stocks firms dollar subdued as market flirts with outside Fed's court. Well, on our show today, we would examine the economy. Inflation figure is out, challenges, government interventions, and of course, impact on the masses. On the flip side of the show, developments around the oil and gas industry. Interesting stories there. PMS pricing. NNPS has started lifting petrol from Dangote refinery. That started yesterday. What are the issues surrounding the price of PMS? We'll look at that also on the show today. But first, let's tell you that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has released an estimated price of premium motor spirit, known as petrol, obtained from the Dangote refinery, its retail stations nationwide. According to the NNPCL, the prices are based on September 16, 2024 pricing. The Chief Corporate Communications Officer of the NNPCL, Mr. Olufemi Shoneye, in a statement posted on X, said the company bought fuel from the Dangote refinery at 898 naira per litre for PMS offtake. This followed a denial by Dangote refinery on Sunday by the Group Chief Branding and Communications Officer, Mr. Anthony Chijena, after the NNPCL's initial disclosure of the 898 pump price obtained from the refinery. The refinery had on Sunday described the disclosures made by the NNPC Limited as mischievous and misleading, aimed at undermining the milestone achievements recorded by the refinery in addressing Nigeria's energy insufficiency. The refinery is urging Nigerians to disregard NNPCL's statement and await a formal announcement on the pricing by the technical subcommittee on Naira-based crude sales to local refineries. A news just in says Nigeria's headline inflation rate eased to 32.15% in August 2024, down from 33.40% recorded in July 2024, reflecting a decrease of 1.25 percentage points. This is the second consecutive monthly slowdown after easing in the previous month. The slowdown will provide some ease to Nigerians who have endured the high living cost on a year-on-year basis. The headline inflation rate was 6.35%, a point so higher compared to 25.8% recorded in the month of August 2023. Month-on-month basis, the headline inflation rate declined by 0.6% recorded in August 2024. Well, this is also a good one. And I have live in the studio this afternoon the Chief Executive Officer, RTC Advisory, Mr. Opeyemi Agbaje. It's good to start the week with you. Good afternoon and thank you so much. Happy celebration.
Thank you so much.
It's a holiday.
Yeah, it's a holiday.
And thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
We've had a good rest in the morning, so yeah.
It's time to get back to
come here.
business. Thank you. Well, you know, I told you about this. We just got this like an hour ago. 32.15%. Seems like it's looking good. We followed the step. Last month we had a decline, and now we're having that again. How does this come to you?
So the fact that inflation is slowing down is good news. 32.15 is still very high rate of inflation, but the trend is positive. Now the bad news is that the two petrol price adjustments we've had in September may again mean another short-term uptick in inflation. However, the general direction is that inflationary pressures are easing. If you put that in the context of one or two other positive news that have emerged in terms of economy, yeah, there's reason to be cautiously optimistic that, okay, maybe the worst is gradually getting over. We've seen a second quarter of trade surpluses, significant trade surpluses. We've had GDP, the last Q2 GDP inch up slightly, those, but a positive direction. The government succeeded in raising $900 million in the domestic bond offer, dollar-denominated, which was a 180% subscription, oversubscription, which is a sign of confidence, in potentially a sign of confidence in the ultimate effect direction of policy. So there are the beginnings of slightly positive news, but the best news of the season is clearly the production and distribution of domestically refined petroleum from Dangote refinery.
That's the big one.
Yes.
It's really a big one.
It's significant.
It is. Yes. But this back and forth regarding pricing, how clear is it to you? An NPC saying I bought at this price, they are paying in dollars. There is this misunderstanding somewhere.
I'm a bit amused and frankly irritated by the unnecessary back and forth. This is essentially a commercial transaction. It has a public policy dimension because there's some subsidy that we're dealing with.
Yes.
So all we need is full transparency. I don't quite understand. The two of them are partners and they need each other. And they need each other more than they understand, apparently. Because NNPC needs to put an end to this importation of fuel, to ensure its corporate survival as an organization. And Dangote Refinery, of course, if it doesn't resolve issues in a way that makes its operations seamless, its supply chain possible, may have a big problem on its hands. It has spent $20 billion. So all of these popularity contests, that's what it seems to me like. It's like every one of them or some of them or both of them is trying to be popular at the expense of the other. And I think it's unnecessary. I also think Nigerians have encouraged that, we have allowed them to do propaganda at our expense and tell us, this. No, we're not interested in the drama. What is the price of the product? And when is it going to be available? That's all. And these are commercial discussions. Is there a subsidy component in it? Let us know. What is the price? What are you selling at? Those are the issues we are interested in.
Because we've had this argument before now that if a product is landing at a particular cost and government is saying this product should be sold at a particular price, somebody pays for that under recovery.
That's the
subsidy. There's a shortfall.
Yes, there's a shortfall that needs to be accounted.
I think that should be clear.
And if there is no under recovery, yes, then I don't understand why they should sell only to NNPC.
Marketers should be allowed to.
Every marketer should have access to the refinery. It's a commercial market if there is no subsidy. So we need transparency around those issues.
The NNPC keep maintaining that they are no more a regulator in this market. Yes. And if you follow the PIA truly, yes, they are not. They're supposed to play just like other, yes, guys in the market. But people still, do you think Nigerians understand this fact?
I don't think so. But clearly they are not regulators anymore. The regulator, when they are dealing with petrol, is the midstream, yes, and downstream, yes, petroleum regulatory agency, authority.
Yes.
And then if it's an upstream conversation, it's the Nigeria upstream. So NNPC is a limited liability company, still owned by government, and I'm hoping that we can resolve all these issues, improve corporate governance around the corporation, and move towards some level of privatization of part of the shares of the company, so that it's a market-based entity and no longer 100% government-owned, just like Nigeria LNG. I think that's the model that recommends itself for many of the potentially successful Nigerian public sector entities. Let's get credible private entities to take part of the equity. Maybe a majority, a slight majority, 51%, as in the case of the Nigerian LNG. And then the organization, of course, government with 49% still wields significant influence on decision-making and still earns significant dividends from the operations, profits and dividends from the operations. And then releasing part of that equity can help us solve our dollar liquidity issues and stabilize our foreign reserves. So there's value in that. But you need to clean up the organization and have a focus on transparency around these operations before that can happen.
You've talked about something very, very, very important now, and shifts to Nigeria's economy and the reforms. We've been talking about this every time we have you here. And, you know, before now, this price of fuel thing obviously affects everything. Movement of food, produce, transportation, and all of that. So I'm thinking, when do we start to see that curve come down? Or when do we start to see the impact? Because everyone is still talking about, oh, this tighten our belts. Are you sure?
You know, like I said, 32, there is trend and there is level.
Okay.
The trend of inflation easing is positive. If it goes down, goes below 30%, continues to ease, as that happens, the populace will feel some ease. But we're far from that because 32, 30, 25 inflation is still high. It means the price over last year is up by 25%. That's significant. However, the trend is positive, but the level is still high. I've mentioned a qualifier for the benefit of our readers. We may expect, or our listeners, we may expect we've had 2 months of decline. Yes, we may see an uptick in September because we all know that we've increased fuel prices twice. Because we did the 855 and 897, and now we're talking about 950. So that may reflect in September inflation data. But I think that after a month or two, the decline should continue. Now, I've always made this point. An economy can grow. Good things can happen. There can be a trade surplus. There can be GDP growth. But you need specific policy actions to make sure the benefits of growth are equitably distributed. So that's in the realm of social policy. What's our social policy? We need clarity around that. I don't like arbitrary or ad hoc palliatives and all of that.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you of interventions. What sort of interventions are
we need carefully thought out social investment programs. In the short term, because of complaints about hunger and poverty, you need some food intervention and things. But the more sustainable interventions I would love to see are in terms of public education. And they may reduce the cost on people if, for instance, you get good public health care, good primary health care services, public transportation. And government, to be fair to them, is already taking a reasonable action in relation to public transportation with the CNG initiative.
Yes.
If we can fast-track execution of that, let that lead to some moderation in public transport costs. And then, so all of these things, capacity building for people, for young adults who are unemployed, skill training, those are the kind of more women initiatives to empower them, traders and so on. So those are the kind of sustainable initiatives that I mean, in my little capacity, I have an NGO that does financing for women exclusively in my town. And I find that they pay back. I find that they're happy. I find that their lives, you can see someone move from borrowing 10,000 in a month and repaying and getting to 200,000 in a month over a period of 18 years. So those are sustainable initiatives. Those are the kind of initiatives that affect poverty. If I give you a bag of rice, you finish eating it in a month or two at the most, and then you are back to your poverty. So what can we do that will shift these people's conditions in a sustainable manner? Those are the kind of things I would like to see.
And the likes of IMF will still say Nigeria needs to sell fuel at the appropriate price. We are not still selling.
You know, I have always believed that we must understand our economy ourselves, and make our own decisions. There may be occasions in which our decisions tally with our expectations. But there will also be occasions in which our decisions do not meet their expectations. Because we live here.
Yes.
And like I said, there's always social policy. If you say we should increase it And our people say, no, we cannot bear this. We like to see a fully deregulated fuel market. Let me be frank. I would like to see that. But we have to balance our expectations or policy initiatives or policy decisions with the reality of social conditions. And the IMF cannot tell us that.
They can't.
They cannot tell us that.
I'm looking at all of this handshake and what should be happening. The CBN is also trying to do a lot, even around the FX space. But the naira to dollar thing,
you know, I have come to a stark conclusion, and I've been hinting at that for some months. I think that we do not need, I'm certain that we do not need a free float of the naira. I think we should migrate policy carefully towards a managed float. And I'm not persuaded that we should facilitate the continued depreciation of the currency at a time like this. We've done enough in terms of liberalizing the currency. We may be close to the end of the period if the FX pressure from petrol is removed. Perhaps we will see some moderation in the market. But otherwise, I would not like to see further devaluation of the currency. I think that we have to be pragmatic with policy. And that suggests to me that I don't even think we should be at 1,600. But
yes, it's quite much. But are they complementing each other? I'm now talking about the fiscal side and the monetary side, because it's important that they don't work, against each other.
Well, when you see the trade surplus, for instance, the CBN can wave that and say, okay, that's one benefit of our policy initiatives. But there's a cost to policy. And even the issues around petrol price, the big elephant in the room is the fact that the dollar price keeps changing. We're lucky. FX price, global oil prices appear to be declining a bit, but we don't know where it will go in the medium and long term. So I think that we need a pragmatic policy environment around the FX exchange rate.
That's very important. Let's talk food, agriculture, and also the interventions that we've seen, because like you said, food remains very important. Once people can feed, they would, but we still have insecurity. And we see distribution of fertilizers, seedlings, and all of that. How can we ramp up and, there's also, the government says levies and taxes should be off some particular food markets. Can all these interventions, how soon will they start to trickle down? People want to buy this food. They can't wait.
One of the interesting things, the inflation data came rather late. So I've not been able to see
the breakdown.
Food inflation component. It was averaging 40%.
Yes, before now.
So that's a problem. 40% is
high
in the cost of food. And you mentioned the insecurity is still a factor.
Yes.
It does seem in the last week or two, the government is finally mustering the focus and the political will to begin to exert some pressure on the security situation. We're seeing some positive results of this bandit killed, that bandit killed. We have to be decisive about that. But beyond all of the insecurity and the inflation that we're seeing, I am worried that I don't think I've had any clear policy pronouncements from the Ministry of Agriculture in the last since the cabinet was appointed. So what has changed about agricultural policy? Or what has not changed? What's the focus of agricultural policy? And I extend that beyond agriculture. I was making a presentation some days back, and I expressed my concern that when in emergency season, in terms of economic policy, many things, but all we're focused on is CBN and Federal Ministry of Finance. And what is changing? What are the reforms around industry, trade, and investment, agriculture? We've seen some efforts in power to affect things. Let me leave that. We've seen some efforts in internal affairs, or what's it called? Ministry of Internal Affairs, immigration, passports, and all that. So there's interior, yes. You know. But there are many other places where there is complete silence. And this is not the time for that. Tourism, culture, agriculture in particular. What's the focus of policy around agriculture? I don't know that many Nigerians can say they know. I don't recall ever listening to the minister or whoever is in charge of agriculture. And this is at a time when that is a national priority, when food inflation is at 40% average, when insecurity is destroying agricultural output, when we need clear policies around the agricultural value chain. As a former minister for agriculture who is now at the ADB, Opeyemi Agbaje, those kind of initiatives, what are they? Where are they now? We're identifying the full value chain of each major agricultural commodity and trying to affect it, trying to put information, put systems into the agricultural space. So I think that we need policy clarity around agriculture, and I think we need, obviously, we need some reforms around that sector.
Let's wrap up with the investment. You've touched on investment, trade, and all. We know the president just got back again from China, and they put pen to paper. We saw agreements there, even the Ministry of Solid Minerals. Yes. So what do you make?
That seemed based on the news we've seen, like the first major successful foreign trip the president has made. And the president should be commended for that. But I'm still concerned that we need a clear... I think generally that one of the things we haven't done well is to document our strategy for the economic reforms so that there's clarity around them. And that includes our strategy for foreign direct investment. There's no policy paper that we can point to that explains our reform strategy, that explains our strategy for foreign direct investment. Maybe that's part of the issues with marketing our reforms and getting FDI to resume. Of course, there have been other issues, the uncertainty around exchange rates and investments, maybe security and all of that. The political climate is also contributing. There's so much toxicity around our politics, which any investor will be concerned about, and ultimately. But I think that my suspicion is that we're beginning to be closer to the turning point.
I think that's a good one.
Yes, that's my honest sense. Wow. I think if you focus on the $900 million subscription, the trade surpluses, we're recording the slight uptick in GDP, the declining trend of inflation, you might say that maybe, and then of course Dangote petroleum becoming a domestic market. I think that we may be close to the beginning of the turning point.
Interesting conversation as usual. I've been speaking to Mr. Opeyemi Agbaje, who's starting the week with us on Business Nigeria. He's the Chief Executive Officer at RTC Advisory. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Thank you very much.
All right, there.